This is A Course in Miracles. It is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. It means only that you can elect what you want to take at a given time. The course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. The opposite of love is fear, but what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. This course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. All right. Today's reading is from chapter 16, The Forgiveness of Illusions. And we're reading from section 6, The Bridge to the Real World. The search for the special relationship is the sign that you equate yourself with the ego and not with God. For the special relationship has value only to the ego. To the ego, unless a relationship has special value, it has no meaning, for it perceives all love as special. Yet this cannot be natural, for it is unlike the relationship of God and his Son, and all relationships that are unlike this one must be unnatural. For God created love as he would have it be, and gave it as it is. Love has no meaning except as its creator defined it by his will. It is impossible to define it otherwise and understand it.
You know, I think one of the hardest things in the Course, at least from memory, was the idea that there's something wrong with special love. You know, because really, I mean, if love isn't special, speaking conventionally, if love isn't special, it's a failure. You know, it needs to be, it needs to have a certain particular glow that sets it apart from everyone and everything else. This one works better than those. This is the connection. This is the bee that finally found the fragrant flower that makes all things fruitful. You know, it's like, it's a beautiful thing, this special love. How many billions of songs have been written about it? So it's difficult for us to understand love as not being special, you know, as though that's a bad thing. And yet, you know that if God's love was special, if there were a chosen people as opposed to others, that's a disaster. It's really, you have to look at it logically. God rains on the just and the unjust. The rain falls on us all alike.
Right.
God's grace falls on us all alike. Or as Jesus said, you know, the seed falls willy-nilly. There's no particularity to where the seed falls, but some falls on the path, some falls on, you know, good ground, some falls here and there.
Fertile ground.
Fertile ground.
Right.
So we have a sense of the sowing of life, of love, and of relationship is equanimous. There's no specialness to it. And we bring all the specialness to it in forms, because you have a certain form. Now, for me to say, you know, the special relationship is for the birds, that's where I think there's some problem. That's why I'm going into this. We don't have to linger on it.
Right.
My problem with it is that we read this sometimes as students of the Course, we read this and go, yeah, you know, special relationship, bad. God's love, good. You know, but we don't believe it, and we don't behave that way.
Exactly.
There has to be a belief, and admit to myself, self-honesty. I'm structurally built to be attracted to Joanna because of very particular things that make the relationship special. Ain't nothing I can do about that. It's the way the body is built. It's the way she's built. You don't deny it by intentionally going after someone who offends you.
Right. I agree.
You know, so let's hold that thought for just 1 second. You can't disprove the special relationship by just ignoring it and going on your merry way. In other words, the special relationship has to be a foothold.
Well, and all all things in our duality world have the foundation of love that surrounds it and is inside of it and everything else. So the real love is right here. It's right here, right now. And so to find where the holy instant can dawn on the mind so that your special relationship is also recognized as the one. Like, in other words, if I recognized the unifying oneness in my, even in my environment and stuff like that, when I looked at you, there would be ecstatic love for who you really are as a Christed being.
I know. However, the caveat with that, the problem with that is you
doesn't
feel that
fit.
way about everything.
Well, yeah, that's
Feel that
true.
way about a squirrel.
True.
So
I
paragraph.
would. Birds in the sky. Yeah, really.
No,
But
it would go on and on.
it would go on and on. But the thing of it is that it doesn't devalue the special relationship. It actually just unifies it with everything. And so let's go on. Yeah, let's go on.
So paragraph 2, love is freedom. To look for it by placing yourself in bondage is to separate yourself from it. For the love of God no longer seek the union in separation, nor for freedom in bondage. As you release, so will you be released. Forget this not, or love will be unable to find you and comfort you. So love is freedom. Love is freedom.
I know.
Love is freedom.
I have to think about what that really means, because I did dwell on that one statement. Love is freedom. Love is freedom. And, we have so many concepts of freedom, being of the land of the free and the home of the brave, I almost said the home of the grave. Oh, that's a bad slip. Anyway.
The Great American Eclipse. It's here.
It's here.
Home of the grave. We're serious. That's what it means.
Yes.
Anyway, go ahead.
Anyway, so what kind of freedom are we talking about?
Freedom. I would say this pops into mind. In astrology, you have a sun sign and a rising sign. Mm-hmm. And they say that the rising sign is a deeper self. I'm just giving you a theory of this thing.
There's a moon sign.
The rising sign, there's a deeper self, a deeper aspect of yourself in the rising. Mm-hmm. In other words, the sun sign is there, and that is sort of a superficial, I'm this and this and this. But there's something emergent that has in the rising sign. I'm going to say that freedom is the emergent of a true love. And that's what we have to go with here. In other words, that would be the metric. Typically, our metric is attachment, specialness, and in the way the Course in Miracles is presenting it, freedom would be the metric. In other words, you and I,
love has no bondage, because the opposite of freedom is a sort of a slavery or bondage.
Well, the bondage it's talking about. I mean,
Yes.
I'm assuming the bondage is to many things. The
Right.
bondage is to what my idea of you is. The original bondage, we talked in the last one about that little homunculus that we create. It's a little person that we create, and you've got one and I've got one. Our real self is in the background, and we sort of steal, like Prometheus stealing fire from the gods. We steal that truth, we steal from truth and craft this little voodoo doll, and then we trade pieces of it with each other and call that love.
Right, and the things that I think are special about you, I now claim as my.
You kind of own them.
I kind of
you own them.
Yes.
We accumulate these things.
You're right.
And so
and then that's a sacrifice of something that I have. And so then there is a form of a bondage that happens.
Well, that's the
inside
bondage. It's a
Yeah.
magic ritual of people trading and keeping aspects and pieces of themselves. This I keep to myself. This I share. This is on the table. This is not. All that kind of thing. Okay, that's all there. So freedom is a metric by which we measure. What is freedom? Freedom doesn't. Well, it's a good question, because does freedom mean everybody does what everybody wants to do? We live in a world of forms. Forms demand certain sorts of
Order.
Order. They are lawful. Forms are lawful. That's why marriage. These are declarations. Now, the Course would say any of those declarations of form, whether it's marriage or the special relationship, they are forms that are empty. They're empty forms. They don't really mean anything. So you don't like say, well, we're married and therefore. However, in the world of form, we are married and we have agreed to a series of empty promises. And I say the empty, I'm not saying that in a derogatory way. We need a way to orient ourselves. And the Course is saying, when a brother asks you to go the distance, just go. It's meaningless. Now, that can be true of, quote unquote, marriage or these special relationships. You realize, ironically, that they're empty of genuine meaning or value, but they have meaning and value as communication devices. Because if we don't have communication devices, then we're confused and we're wandering around.
We can't come to know ourselves because the whole reflective process.
Serial monogamy is a disaster.
Right. Yeah.
Serial monogamy, talking in heterosexual relationships, serial monogamy is an absolute disaster in terms of someone finding themselves. What they end up with is a life of
moving
conquests and failures.
Yes.
And they go, well, that one was pretty good. Too bad it didn't work out. There was good about this or that. It really ends up being a horizontal movement to nowhere. It goes nowhere. And I think we could agree that the experiment did not work. Serial monogamy doesn't work.
Right. So then, having a actual commitment is in a, quote, special relationship brings the order within this realm, within the dream. That's the only way I know how to explain it.
They actually did a study. They did a study, and they said they had 4 products out on a table, 4 products, and people were allowed to test and buy. And people tested these 4 products, tested and bought, and there was a certain amount of sales. And so this person that was doing this, those are jellies, if I remember right, it's types of jelly, and they're doing the samples. And they say, wow, they love this one and this one. We've got all these other flavors. So they threw 25 flavors at them. So now when people go by, there's 25 flavors. People are ecstatic over the level, the amount of diversity, and how wonderful it is. But you know what? Their sales tanked. You sell more jelly when you got 4 choices.
Right.
The human mind can't handle that kind of freedom.
Right.
So freedom has to be of another kind. You would think, right?
Yes, I would
You would
agree.
think that you've got, in the jelly world, you've got more freedom with 25 choices, right? Yeah. Just like serial monogamy. You got more choices, you got more freedom. You got more exploration, more personal truth. My truth, not yours, mine, mine. So that's what we've got. So what are we talking about with freedom? What freedom comes from the discipline of walking the talk, walking the walk? Isn't there a freedom that comes from that?
Yeah, there's a freedom that comes in.
But what is it?
Because it's a freedom that is not disturbed by the different variations that keep coming at me. Whether it's, you're having a bad day, so then I take on the bad day for myself, and I feel like maybe that was, in other words, the variations that are happening in the world, the news that's coming at me and everything else, if I start to approach it as just, riding a wave, like this as opposed to spiking, like this, that means I'm being carried by more like the grace of God, because I've learned to carry myself by not reacting, by not judging, by not everything that comes at me as a way or a reason for me to have an opinion and have an upset or whatever it is. So freedom then is in experiencing
freedom from the bondage to those reactive impulses.
Yeah, definitely.
It's freedom from...
And it happens only when you rely on something greater than yourself, the ego self.
It's freedom from specialness.
Yeah.
In other words, back to the ice cream thing. So, somebody wrote in the comments and they go, isn't it the deal just to eliminate ice cream is a big deal? You just kind of eliminate that. And so I'm saying, well, I use it as a test case, the whole ice cream thing, because freedom doesn't mean I give up vanilla. Let's say vanilla's my favorite flavor. I'm built to like vanilla. But the freedom is, and able to appreciate chocolate, or an ability to appreciate others, and to not freak out because vanilla's not there. You know, I'll have my special relationship with a certain flavor of person, of ice cream, of experience. Always, always. Freedom is not being a mood slave to those things.
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, your preferences cannot be the thing that is the only thing that is going to drive you. Otherwise, you are a slave to it. You know, it has to be that if things go differently, or if someone else shows up at the door than you expected, or whatever it is, that you're able to kind of enter into those things as like, oh, new thing coming at me. Am I going to react, or am I going to like take a moment? It only takes a moment to recognize that the Holy Spirit is with me, and this can be what it's going to be and not be a total, whatever, disaster, depending on what your preconceived notions are about what that thing is that's coming at you.
Feeling your mood tank is a guaranteed
Yeah.
indicator that you've got some special deal going on that needs some inquiry, needs some help. A little bit, you know, and that's a depressing situation, because I'll be on the top of the world, and then some small thing happens, and suddenly I'm in a bad mood, and I go, how long have I been in this funk? It seems like I've been in this funk for like a day and a half, and I haven't. You know, you've got to go back and try to understand that some message, some broken covert contract happened along the way, and now it's time for me to be unhappy. The obligations of the contract, the bondage, the special deal were not fulfilled. Therefore, I feel bad.
Right. Okay, let's go on. There is a way in which the Holy Spirit asks your help, if you would have his. The holy instant is his most helpful aid in protecting you from the attraction of guilt, the real lure of the special relationship. So it's an attraction of guilt, the real lure in the special relationship. You do not recognize that this is the real appeal, for the ego has taught you that freedom lies in it. Yet, the closer you look at the special relationship, the more apparent it becomes that it must foster guilt and therefore must imprison.
Okay, so the special relationship fosters guilt. We're back to that guilt word again. But again and again and again. I mean, is there ever a time when we just say, yeah, we understand guilt, finally, after 400 references
No,
to
because
it?
I would have to say, even as I'm reading it, I have to remember that the first, when they were first defining guilt earlier on when we read it, it had to do with the separation. It immediately caused guilt. The idea of separating from the one caused the sense of guilt immediately. And so any form of separation is going to carry guilt with it, where I'm over here, you're over there, those over there. There's going to be this thing that I think it's so common that we don't understand what it is. It's pervasive in our lives.
Well, let's say you're guilty, okay? Let's say I'm the judge.
I mean, it's different than, okay,
no,
let's
right.
go.
Let's say I'm the judge, and I say, okay, you're guilty. And I say it to myself, say it to her, say it to anybody. Okay, you're guilty. All right, we're all on with that. That's how we judge. Yes, I'm guilty, but now what? Please don't hang me. A certain amount of torturing is okay. No, just 6 months with a bail. 6 months with bail. Now, couldn't we get it down to 4? In other words,
we have it all associated with a court case.
But I'm saying that in relationship with people, we've decided there are limits to this perfect thing. We've decided, this one's special. The spotlight has fallen on there. We don't know what disaster is in the areas where the spotlight is not flashing, but the spotlight is on this, and we just go, wunderbar. This is fantastical. And what the deal is that because we think that's fantastic, we do that by ignoring all the other unfantastic stuff. And it's just a matter of, so when we're in the relationship, that is that covert agreement. The covert agreement is we keep it special so that we don't notice all that other crap.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and we're willing to compromise on it and to say, well,
so that's the weaponized relationship. That's why the relationship works. It's like, okay, Son of God, the first thing we've decided, Holy Son of God, is that you're guilty. Okay? In other words, you're partial, you're limited, there's some problem here. Now with that, it's just a matter of how bad are you going to get it? And so the special relationship is the tool. In other words, the weapon to keep guilt on the Holy Son of God. The
Yeah.
special relationship keeps me guilty. So how does that work? I mean, how does it work in a real relationship? If you have two people that are supposedly, let's say they have their special relationship and they've got their expectations,
Well,
how
so-
does understanding some of this help that relationship?
Well, I think we're going to have to keep reading to find that out.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, because
Okay.
otherwise, I mean,
Okay.
let's just say right now we do not understand that is the real appeal for the ego has taught you that freedom lies in it, that the specialness and the fact that we're playing this little guilt game between us that, oh, I love him until he does that, whatever that is, whatever unkempt thing or whatever it is in the house.
So we know it is a weapon, and it said
Yeah.
earlier that the
Yeah.
ego, this is its pride and joy. The special relationship
Yeah.
is not a mistake.
Yeah. And then I'm guilty on the inside because I say, oh, I'm so good enough to overlook that particular thing that's bothering me.
Right,
or
the
whatever.
usual thing. So let
Yeah.
me do paragraph 4.
So that's those guilt and the separation thing.
The
as far as I'm
special
concerned.
relationship is totally meaningless without a body. If you value it, you must also value the body. And what you value, you will keep. The special relationship is a device for limiting yourself to a body and for limiting your perception of others to theirs. The great rays would establish the total lack of value of the special relationship if they were seen. For in seeing them, the body would disappear because its value would be lost. And so your whole investment in seeing it would be withdrawn from it.
I love the great rays. They capitalize it. And I have a thing with great rays. But anyway, we're not going to go into that here. But anyway, the idea that we are a radius kind of a being of some sort and that we can't, like, the truth of you is like rays of lovely light.
I'm going to say the great rays, like you have a spectrum. Who's going to say you're looking at a rainbow?
I mean, they make them halos around all of them.
I know. But let's say you're looking at a rainbow.
Okay, yes.
And but as long as it stays in the realm of the great rays, you're just in this esoterica. You might as well be talking
Right.
about plutonium from some other planet that's going to do something for you. You don't know.
Right.
We don't see it. And then I can sit and hold my breath until I see an aura.
Oh, wow, I see your great rays today.
You're green. I got green everywhere with you. Green. Have you ever had people do that? Of
Yes.
course you have.
Yes.
And you go, well, so what? It's like, is that a good thing?
I know.
Oh, it's very good. So anyway, so you get these great rays, and I'm going to say that if I look at a rainbow, there's no legitimate way to say red is better than violet is better than yellow.
Yeah.
It's just light and it's diffraction. And even if you can say, I'm attracted to the yellow of the rainbow, as opposed to, what, as soon as you say that, you realize, well, it's in context of the red, the violet, the green, etc., the blue. It's in context. So there's no real ability to get special about a rainbow. The rainbow is a rainbow. And I'm going to say that that's the dynamic it's talking about, is that when I see people as products of that rainbow, the great rays, it's
Yeah.
the 7
Yeah.
colors.
You're right.
And if I saw a person, there would be no way to have a special anything with people. That's the deal. And that's why it throws it off if you saw the nature of the body. In other words, if you saw the nature of the body, which is a gross gross manifest form of the great rays. In other words, the body is knitted together somehow out of these great rays. Believe me, I don't know.
Yeah.
I kind of don't care.
Right.
But if I saw it that way, the judgment facility of a mind would shut down. Just in the same way a rainbow does this thing.
Right.
So it's important in terms of what the Course says. It's important to see us as bodies and not as great rays. So some of the reason we don't see great rays is because it's important for us to hang in here with this fleshy thing, because that's the only place judgment works well.
Right. So let's go back. So a little bit. Yeah, the special relationship is totally meaningless without a body. If you value it, you must also value the body, and what you value, you will keep. The special relationship is a device for limiting yourself to a body and for limiting your perception of others to theirs. So that's, the great rays would establish a total lack of value for the special relationship if they were seen. For in seeing them, the body would disappear because its value would be lost, and so your whole investment in seeing it would be withdrawn from it. I don't know. There's a whole lot that you can go from there because right now we don't see.
Right, but analogies work. If I look into a puddle and I'm walking down the street and there's puddles on the sidewalk and I see the moon reflected in a puddle.
Yeah.
I'll look at it now. If I don't know that there's a moon in the sky, then I feel like there's something magical, very special happening with the moon in the sidewalk. How is this possible? Not understanding that there's a moon in the sky. And when I look up at the moon in the sky, the reflection in the sidewalk loses its value. And I'm going to say that's why the body loses its value, is because you see the source of the physicality.
Oh, right. That's a good analogy.
And you lose it loses its value automatically.
Yeah. Yeah, the source behind what animates us, what makes us a bright light. Okay, let's go on. Paragraph 5. You see the world you value. On this side of the bridge, you see the world of separate bodies, seeking to join each other in separate unions and to become one by losing. When two individuals seek to become one, they are trying to decrease their magnitude. Each would deny his power, for the separate union excludes the universe. Far more is left outside than would be taken in, for God is left without and nothing taken in. If one such union were made in perfect faith, the universe would enter into it. Yet the special relationship the ego seeks does not include even one whole individual. The ego wants but part of him and sees only this part and nothing else.
So wholeness and commitment, wholeness, consistency, commitment, all these words that the Course has applied to God. If my special relationship with you could manifest truly those commitment, constancy, all that, the self would be able to enter. The holy relationship would be able to enter into that. So the deal,
I'm not quite following.
If I'm able to show up for relationship with an eye on wholeness in terms of I'm
wholeness.
showing up, I'm showing up. There's consistency, there's constancy, there's tolerance. I'm constantly bringing in this sense of wholeness. Wholeness meaning I want you to be a whole person. I want to be a whole person.
Okay.
I want them out there to be a whole person. It's not you and me against the world.
Right.
And it's also not me and you as agents of miracles in the world. We're entering into the world, allowing us this relationship to mix in. If we can maintain that, now it doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel natural to us to have that sort of wholeness.
Right.
It's easy to talk about. It's nice to talk about, but it starts to feel like we're losing our boundary.
Right. Yeah, it does. Yeah, because we're so used to that separation.
But if we were able to stay with it, I would say to the degree you can stay with it, the holy relationship can enter in. And so that special relationship can be a means of communicating the holy relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what does it look like between two people? What does it look like? I'm going to say off the top of my head, it's the importance of forms. It's the importance of forms, meaning the rules, the expectations, the boundaries, the disciplines that are necessary in a conventional sense. If there's not conventionality of established norms in a relationship, then it's like, as I've heard described, it's like a pillowcase. It's like a pillow with no pillowcase. All you have is a bunch of feathers going all over the place. You don't, a pillow requires feathers for fluff, and it requires a case to keep all that fluff in one place.
Right.
So our relationship requires rules, boundaries. If I say, hey, baby, we're free, just back off. I'm going to be out tonight till, I don't know what, 3, 5? I don't know. Just cool out,
Yeah.
No, we need norms.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
Within,
right?
and not only that, but I mean, the Holy Spirit is always going to use the relationship as a means to communicate and to allow for the space where we see those reflections of the truth, because we're desiring, because those prior paragraphs, it says for us to invite him in. On paragraph, the holy instant is his most helpful aid in protecting you from the attraction of guilt. And so there is a way in which the Holy Spirit asks your help, is asking our help, and we need to ask for its help in order so that we can see things in a different light.
The Holy Spirit is an interpreter. In that way, the Holy Spirit is the warden that opens the prison door and lets us out. But the Spirit blowing where it will is not a conventional sense of what we know of as a boundless freedom in form.
Right.
Freedom from form.
Right.
Form is useless. When you realize form is not meaningful of itself, you're free of it.
Right. Yeah, I talked about in the prior section, we talked about form and content as well.
Well, and that's the guy in jail. He's in prison, and suddenly he realizes, okay, wait, let's see what's going on here. I'm in prison. I'm stuck with these books. I'm stuck with this weight set, and it becomes his freedom.
Yeah.
He takes that opportunity to happen to your nephew.
Yes, it did.
Where prison becomes freedom at some level. So it's not formal.
Yeah, that's right. It's not about the form. It has to do with something else.
Paragraph 6. Across the bridge, it is so different. For a time, the body is still seen, but not exclusively as it is seen here. The little spark that holds the great rays within it is also visible, and this spark cannot be limited long to littleness. Once you have crossed the bridge, the value of the body is so diminished in your sight that you will see no need at all to magnify it. For you will realize that the only value the body has is to enable you to bring your brothers to the bridge with you and to be released together there.
Can you go back to the very end? Okay, I know.
Go ahead. Go.
Okay, to the very end of the last section, because it talks about the bridge and God.
This year is thus the time to make the easiest decision that ever confronted you, and also the only one. You will cross the bridge into reality simply because you will recognize that God is on the other side and nothing at all is here. It is impossible not to make the natural decision as this is realized.
Okay, so I just wanted to refresh our memory about that because that's important.
The bridge to the real
bridge
world.
is to the real world, and God is on the other side, holding out its hand, and with his grace, we will be ferried across with our willingness, with our decisions. Okay, so across the bridge, it is so different. For a time, the body is seen. So the bridge, it's so different because now you're on the side of reality with God. That's the difference, It's not like a normal bridge. We're talking a bridge between the dream and reality.
Okay, but the other thing, I jump to this. It's important to realize that this is not talking about losing the body, losing form,
right.
Getting lost in some friggin' fantasy. No, we live in a world of forms. They are important in a world of forms. Forms are important to forms. Bodies are important to bodies. It's meaningless. The Course isn't here to say, do whatever the hell you want, and it's meaningless. It just doesn't matter, man. Cool out.
Yeah, now you're talking about do what thou wilt, which is an entirely different program.
No, it's not. It's not that.
Yes, right.
It's because form is not important. I'm not going to do this, but put on your necktie. Wear a jacket. Yeah. That form doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Neither good nor bad. Dignity. Dignity is an inner movement. You ask yourself, what creates dignity? What inner movement creates dignity? Is it a tie? Is it better just to wear a T-shirt that's got big, ketchup and mustard stains all over it? Do I feel dignity in that shirt? Maybe. Maybe not. Probably not. Because we live in a world of forms.
Right.
Now, what you might feel free, but it's the false freedom. If I'm wearing the T-shirt with ketchup and mustard stains on it. I know that it's an analogy.
No, it's good.
Forms are important.
Right.
Forms are important. So this stuff about the great rays and going on the other side of the bridge, it's not some zoned out, thing where you just like space out and levitate in your little Lotus vehicle flying around the universe in your head. It's not that. See, do you realize how weaponized these concepts were through the Cultural Revolution of the 60s?
Right.
People are busy trying to find meaning in the meaningless.
What was what's his name? Tune in, turn out.
Oh yeah, Timothy Leary. Yeah, he was on the CIA payroll, by the way.
But what was his phrase?
Turn on, tune in. Tune in, turn on, and tune out.
Drop out.
Drop.
It's something like that.
Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it's Timothy Leary.
I know, but it's the opposite of what this is.
No,
exactly.
No, we were given that.
Yeah, we were given that.
Or like Ram Dass, be here now, man.
Yeah.
Be here now. Be here now. As Robert Thurman said, but what is being here now being? What is it? Is it a nihilistic bit of nothingness in the crashing waves of evolution? In other words, is there any meaning there? You can't just be here now. Cut loose, man. Just be. Well, if down and deep inside you think that being is worthless, and that's what this whole course is about.
Yeah,
we were convinced ourselves that being is kind of worthless, pointless.
Right. And then you go to littleness,
Yeah.
which is the ego. I mean, so the whole thing goes backfires.
Anyway, on and on and on.
Okay. So the little spark that holds the great rays within it is also visible on the other side of the bridge, and this spark cannot be limited long to littleness. Again, the bridge over that kind of sense that we're now joining with God is the end of our littleness, because now we're recognizing the oneness that has magnitude. There's a whole section on littleness and
what
magnitude.
happens is that what the Course is giving another one. It's a great metaphysic here. I would love to get lost on it. It's like, okay, so the spark that holds the great rays. You realize that what it's saying is not that there's a little spark in me. There's a little spark.
Might be.
No, that's not the point. That's how it appears here. Why? Because we have magnified the importance of the physicality. So it's a play of perceptions. The spark itself is actually the size of the entire universe. This is the point that it's making. And so when you make that bridge over there, you see and how long can it stay a spark? How long will it stay small? It relentlessly joins itself with the great spark that it's really just a glimmering manifestation of.
Right.
And it joins with that great spark. And therefore the body just fades. Yeah. It's like you don't seek to fight that fight. You don't try to keep that real estate, the body as real estate. The body then becomes the epiphenomenon of the great rays, the epiphenomenon of spiritual realities.
Yeah.
But as soon as you see spiritual realities, they fold into the great cosmic reality. And so I'm sure.
And then the Holy Spirit uses that whole the form of the relationship and everything else to move us to the recognition of this greater self, because someplace along the way we have, like that moment with Tony, where all of a sudden you relax and you go, "Hey, he's my brother." There's this sort of the sense of like, I have judged him, and now when I remove my judgment, there is not something to keep the other over there because I'm protected from them, the idea that I have about them. There becomes a moment where the gap is ended. It might only be moments in this place. There's a lot of just moments, They got to be good enough to help you see who you are.
That brings up, there's a frightening aspect to the Course. I find it frightening. As long as I'm doing a book that was written by some folks at Columbia, I'm pretty okay. And as long as I've got some kind of Seth-like channeled message, I'm kind of okay. But when I realize that if I do the Course is dragging me towards sainthood.
Yeah, it is.
And I don't, and it's not cool to be a saint. The saints are over there doing their thing.
Talk about people who levitate. Many have been seeing them just suddenly rise
but
off
there
the
is a
ground.
question. I would say just
Or freeze while
reality.
they're looking at the Eucharist.
I know, but reality check. Check your pulse.
Yeah.
If I say this is taking me towards holiness, this is taking me towards sainthood, does that frighten you? Because that's something that has to be dealt with.
Yeah, I would say that for many, including myself, that there is, because we want to fit in. Being of form and everything else, we want to fit in. And suddenly, the very thing about not being separate feels like separateness. What the heck? It's like, now I understand everything, but now nobody understands me. There's like this other thing that happens.
Right, exactly.
So
that's it.
So,
and yet, those are fears.
Yeah, they are.
Those are fears. And despite what I think about, I don't know, some saint, whether it's Ramana Maharshi, Teresa of Avila, Thomas Aquinas, whomever, some Sufi saint, whatever I think about them as being other, their internal reality, their perception is the opposite of that.
Right.
They feel very much kinship with me. That's my problem with the saint. It's not the saint's problem.
Yeah, it's even, with the prominent deity of the time, Jesus. It's like, to be like Jesus. Well, it's taught in all the churches and everything else. But, when somebody actually starts to live in the way that he is and everything else, there's this sense of like otherness. Do you move towards that being, or do you feel like, wow, I don't know. There's these just places, and it seems like, okay, now it seems like separateness has entered once again. Paragraph 7. The bridge itself is nothing more than a transition in the perspective of reality. On this side, everything you see is grossly distorted and completely out of perspective. What is little and insignificant is magnified, and what is strong and powerful cut down to littleness. In the transition, there is a period of confusion in which a sense of actual disorientation may occur. But fear it not, for it means only that you have been willing to let go your hold on the distorted frame of reference that seemed to hold your world together. This frame of reference is built around the special relationship. Without this illusion, there could be no meaning you would still seek here.
So it's a shift only in perspective. In other words, nobody really, let's say, goes anywhere.
No, they don't.
And I've used that example before. You stand in the door frame, of two rooms. And when your feet point into one room, that's one reality. You can turn without going anywhere, and you're in a completely different room.
Right.
Or inside to outside, So it's that kind of a perspective shift. And that you're not really it's not really a journey per se, but it might as well be a journey. You might as well be in the Himalayas instead of a junkyard, let's say.
Right. In fact, that's pretty much what happens. All things become a radiance that is beyond this world. And so there's a sense of all things being unified, all things being in praise of life. There's all things, including our own hearts. There's a radiance that seems to be around everything. And so, but the world itself doesn't change. You still go outside and you say, a body needs food. You go to the grocery store, a body needs, and your relationships don't necessarily really change either. At least I didn't find they did.
Church.
Yes.
And I have a spiritual experience. And there is a melting down of my perceptual field. And things are changing shape, and the meanings inside of things as an inner glow is changing. And even the sense of what gravity is or what boundaries are is all undergoing a shift. And it was a glorious kind of expansive thing, but brought tears. In other words, it brings a sort of an ironic sadness. It's like joy, but tears. There's this thing.
Because how did I not see it? Why didn't I not?
Well, there's that, but even further, as it ripens, as the experience ripened, there is fear mixes in. Mm-hmm. Like, wow, this doesn't really work with real life. This doesn't work with real life. As this Course in Miracles, let's just go here. This doesn't work with real life. If you want to live real life, whatever, go to Edward Jones, get in the stock market, follow politics, do whatever. If you want to follow real life, get into real life, because this isn't it. This will mislead you. That is, I'm going to say, the voice of the ego coming in and protecting itself. And that's what happened to me in that church. I became afraid, and that ended the experience. Because I would say that if I had been able to sustain openness to it and just calm myself down, calm down, Phil, it's just this thing, and relax into it, and ask within that state, is this the end of the road? Is this the beginning of what? Help me out here. Instead of just flee and slam the door, flee. I'm going to say that's what it's talking about. This does bring a fairly radical restructuring of my relationship with people and situations.
Right.
And myself.
And Eckhart Tolle, he just ended up sitting on a bench for days and days, apparently, to just stay in that state of recognition.
And so someone would say about Eckhart Tolle, oh, well, Eckhart Tolle went through it, but all these things are limited. Yes, the mind blower, is limited. I'd say the problem with the mind blower as a limited experience, in other words, you can't stay in it. Samadhi is not designed to be in for years and years on end.
Right.
It's you go in and you come out, and if you're not able to drag yourself out of there by yourself, other people will drag you out.
Right. And in the Bible, I mean, when Jesus sends the Holy Spirit, they became that's where acts take place. I mean, all the acts of casting out demons and all this other stuff. Suddenly,
they didn't zone out.
They're lit to do
they
God's
didn't tune
will.
In.
It's so. Right. If it really happens to some of you, and I wish it upon everyone, actually.
Well, I know. Okay, but I know. But you.
But anyway.
I know. Anyway, I'm not going to get into it. I'm not going to get into enlightenment bashing. Yeah. It's like, but the deal is, it is frightening to be destabilized in what I consider normal. Yeah. And that destabilization, there are some personalities that dig that destabilized state, and then
I wasn't feeling destabilized.
Well, of course not. You liked it.
I liked it.
If you didn't like it, it would feel destabilized.
So I stayed for several days, weeks, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, you were destabilized. It's just the nature of the way you're built is like, hey, cool. I like destabilization. I, on the other hand, if I start to feel destabilization, I say, what the hell's going to happen next? What are all these people going to do without me?
I know, so it becomes very personal, obviously.
Yeah. So all I'm saying is that the form of what I am, it doesn't really matter. The point of all this conversation about it is, you will be destabilized. Regardless of whether you feel it or not, you will be destabilized. But the judgments of that destabilization is what determines what happens next. In other words, just because I'm destabilized doesn't mean I say, whoops, condition orange, and then figure out something else. Settle in. Wow. Yeah. Stuff happens.
I just remember screaming to the universe, don't ever let me forget again. That's what I remember. That was my main statement. Don't ever let me forget. And unfortunately, the world is very tricky and deceptive. And
okay, well, and we're right there, right? Paragraph 8, we're right there.
Yeah.
Fear not that you will be abruptly lifted up and hurled into reality.
There you go.
Time is kind. And if you use it on behalf of reality, it will keep gentle pace with you in your transition.
Gentle pace with you in your transition.
The urgency is only in dislodging your mind from its fixed position here. This will not leave you homeless and without a frame of reference. The period of disorientation, which precedes the actual transition, is far shorter than the time it took to fix your mind so firmly on illusions. Delay will hurt you now more than before, only because you realize it is delay, and that escape from pain is really possible. Find hope and comfort rather than despair in this. You could not long find even the illusion of love in any special relationship here. For you are no longer wholly insane, and you would soon recognize the guilt of self-betrayal for what it is. So it said it right there.
I know, fear not.
Fear not that you'll be hurled into, but if something comes in and says, oh man, if I do this Course in Miracles, it's leading me into some sort of, I don't want the stigmata. I don't want to be bleeding all over the place. I don't want to be spaced out. I like pizza, man. I like ice cream. I like these things. My whole world. So I'm married. What the hell? What are my kids going to do? So this is where people go with this stuff.
Right.
Suddenly, and that's what you warned me about when we first got together. I could be out of here any second. I could be out of here any second. Just when the Spirit calls, I could be
gone
on the road. And I'm going,
wow. It hasn't happened.
So the deal is, it's like we have a mythology of freedom. It's a mythology of freedom. God's not interested in our mythology of freedom, only interested in true freedom. And true freedom is to live in forms and to live in the world but not of it, to not be burdened and crushed by form.
Right.
Now, if forms
and preferences.
Right, forms and preferences. Now, it doesn't mean, wow, my husband decked me once again, turned the other cheek. I said, he punched me out last night, and I said, here, hit the other side. That's not respecting form as an empty vehicle for communication, because we're in communication as well.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense to me. No, you do not harm your brother. Do no harm is inherent in the enlightened state.
And what's another form that punch can take? Hey, honey, how come you're packing up? Spirit, talk to me. I'm out of here. I'm not taking the car. I'm just going to walk down to the interstate and hitchhike somewhere. Don't keep up with me. I'm free. That's not freedom. That's a punch as well. That's being a slave to formalities. We've become addicted.
I know. And then the strangest thing is, there's like St. Francis who just strips his clothes in front of his father.
He didn't dump his kids.
No, he didn't have any children.
And when Buddha dumped his kid, Buddha did dump his kid. I have a little judgment about the Buddha for that. But if Buddha dumped his kid, so what's the story there? Different time, different culture, different space. The ladies in the palace, they don't have the sense of whatever neo-European love and romance that we have. It's different. It was more of a bond. It was families together. And so when he left his kid behind, first of all, I don't know, the dads really were like, hey, come on, let's play catch. And they didn't really do that kind of thing. He had his ministers play catch with the kid. So when Buddha left, he left the form of what he was as a prince. But no one sacrificed, okay? Kid didn't sacrifice. Wife didn't sacrifice. Family didn't sacrifice. The only one that sacrificed when Buddha did that was himself. And I'm saying, and if that's a mythology I'm inventing right here on the spot, I say it's important because...
No, we need to understand those because you're right.
We have to be aware of the mythologies that we have been steeped in for so long about what is freedom, what is marriage, what is relationship, what is duty, all these kinds of things. That's the end of part 1 of The Bridge to the Real World in this chapter 16, The Forgiveness of Illusions. It went long because the special relationship seems to be a central, important theme to understand how it works on a daily and a practical way. I'd say the thing that's important about it is that it's a hiding place. It seems so important and valuable, and yet within the special relationship, which isn't restricted just to a partner, or definitely not heterosexual or monogamous relationships, but any time my emotions are invested in granting another group or system or situation sort of special powers to bring me happiness from outside of myself through projection. Anyway, thank you for being with us on this, and we'll start up with paragraph 9 in this section, The Bridge to the Real World. Have a good day. Bye.